Sub-themes are the different smaller parts within any given theme. Using early Ninjago as an example, the main playsets are the main theme, so something like the spinners would be the sub-theme. A different line providing a different experience while also being a part of the same theme. Sub-themes are essential to the longevity of any big LEGO theme. They provide variety, and variety is the spice of life, or whatever. Though there is a point where it becomes too much. In this video, I kinda wanted to look at the concept as a whole, what different sub-themes provide to the table, and finally, and most importantly, what point is it too much? Because too much looks different for every different theme, I feel. No other theme demonstrates the concept as a whole better than Star Wars does though, which is why it and the sub-themes are gonna be the basis of this video. Yeah, this is my first Star Wars video. Kinda. Like I said, this is meant to be more of an analysis on sub-themes in general as a whole, seeing how they can work and when they stop working, and when they go too far, which Star Wars is the perfect example of, I feel right now. Each sub-theme works to do something different, and I wanted to briefly go over each sub-theme under the Star Wars umbrella, and more importantly, who they aim to target. And that's only counting what's currently out. Since 2020, we've seen a fair share of Star Wars' sub-themes just eventually die out. Most likely due to poor sales, but I don't know, we ain't got nothing to prove that. But as a whole, we have 6 base sub-themes, in addition to the main Star Wars sets, as well as 3 technical sub-themes. I think technically we would actually count these as sub-themes, but I'm trying to give Star Wars the benefit of the doubt here. Anyways, as is, 7 different types of sets to manage is insane. It's why each individual wave of Star Wars ends up feeling so disjointed and all over the place, whereas in the past they would feel more uniform, with a more common seeable goal throughout. Having the focus split so thin does end up harming the waves themselves and year as a whole. Looking at 2014, we see by focusing purely on playsets, you can easily split your focus to multiple forms of media, especially when working with winter and summer waves. This way, if say, I don't know, something crazy happens, like your HD remake gets cancelled, or your movie severely underperforms. Crazy, right? I don't really think this would ever happen. But if something like this does happen, you have other playsets that come out later in the year from other media to back them up, in case they don't sell well because of the media's failings. However, fast forward to 2026, and all our eggs in terms of playsets are in the Mandalorian basket. So if that movie underperforms, it's undoubtedly going to severely hurt the sets. However, taking this route does leave one very big problem. While it seems easy to kind of just dismiss all these new buildable and 18 plus sets because it's not like what we got in 2014, or not as much so, it's also important to remember how the audience for LEGO and toys has shifted over the years. Heck, I'm sure there's some of you right now asking me not to dog on your favorite sub-theme. Your boy has a favorite sub-theme of his own. It's the Helm's the best. The market for LEGO has grown so much that being a LEGO Star Wars fan doesn't mean wanting to collect every set. Someone can be a big fan of just the UCS sets or just the helmet sets and call it a day. Everything is somebody's favorite. However, I think we are at a point of critical mass with sub-themes, and at a point where they're more of a hindrance to the theme as a whole. Variety is the spice of life, but too much variety just leaves people disappointed, because they didn't get enough or too little of what they want. A theme like Ninjago has the opposite issue with sub-themes, I feel, where it only has 3 as opposed to Star Wars' 6. It can have years like 2026, where it decides to dedicate more budget to its sub-themes than its main wave, and still have the main wave feel not too skimmed out on. Obviously, some things are going to be obvious. The summer wave is almost all reuses of figures from beginning of the year, but this I don't resent as much here, because when I look at both Ninjago's other sub-themes, I can very much see where the budget is going, figure and set wise. While the main wave is getting a few less figs than it usually does, the amount of sets, and of course the quality of those sets, make up for it, which results in all 3 chunks of the theme feeling like they're getting somewhat equal representation as a whole. Star Wars' sets have a similar, more consistent quality across the board. The main wave is getting a lot of print and graph figures, the buildable figures are getting a lot of prints and details, Smart Play is getting, well, everything it feels like. But with sets spread so far that we get so little of each sub-theme, it's hard for me to say it feels worth it to have this many sub-themes. If even when getting the best quality and most detail, I'm getting so few of each's individual sets. So how many sub-themes is too many sub-themes? So far we've assessed Star Wars has too many, and Ninjago has a good amount. So what is the Goldilocks zone here? When does it become too much that it becomes unmanageable? I don't think there's an exact specific number, and of course it'll vary by theme, but I think Marvel is a pretty good example in this scenario. However, Marvel did something very interesting that I actually really like. Over time, as you add more sub-themes, they are eventually going to become more similar because, I mean, you're covering similar topics within the same IP. You can only make so many new ideas in one IP, you know. But last year, they put out 2 busts and 1 helmet. However, this year, the 2 busts remain, but the helmet does not. Meaning the busts replace the helmets, which I love because it's the design team acknowledging this very fact and doing away with a now repetitive subline to make room for more sets. You see, I'm gonna say this, and then next year, they're gonna be right back to the helmets. But whatever. This is absolutely something I think Star Wars should take note of. I think the easy one to cut here is the busts. The helmets are much more of a staple of Star Wars and end up making the busts feel redundant, even though I do like them. This leaves us with 5 sub-themes, or 6 and when you include the main one, which is not only more manageable, but we can make this even better for the theme by regulating the amount of sets each gets per year. Though I will say 5 still feels like a lot. It gets better as we go though, trust. Working under the guise that Star Wars gets 30 sets a year, 24 I believe was 28 sets, 25 was 29 sets, and this year will be 30. For the buildable characters, I think 2 a year is also fine. That is more or less what they're pumping out right now, and I think it works for them. For simplicity's sake, we're also going to be rolling these 2, which I think might be separate sub-themes, into one. I think it works because it's just enough to get some variety in there without detracting from the main theme too much. UCS is also, of course, just gonna stay at 2. 2 works. They've been doing it for years. I feel like the few times they've done 3, the third just ends up heavily discounted. So we'll keep it at 2. 2 works. Next is helmets and starships, which I'm gonna group together because I feel like they're in a similar boat, though a bit different. Both are sub-themes that have been running for a long time, so they've covered a lot. However, they differ because I feel the helmets have a lot of fans, however, they don't get many anymore. Like I said, they've been on for, what, 6 years now? Starship Collection, if I'm gonna be honest, feels a bit like an industry play. A lot of these less popular ships will hit sales pretty often, or just linger after retirement. While I see people with giant collections of helmets, I don't see nearly as much, if at all, for the starships. I think 2 a year and 2 a year is fine. However, if the helmets ever need or want to eat into the starships too and get 3 a year, it can. I'd bring the dioramas back because they were my favorite 18+ line when they actually locked in, but it feels like they don't know how to do that sometimes and it's just so annoying. So they will remain dead in the ditch. I guess I have to mention Smart Play. I've low-key been trying to avoid it in this whole video, but I guess it needs mentioning. Like everyone else, I'd like to just cut this, but because someone at LEGO seems to love this, I guess I have to keep it. We're just gonna go with 3 sets, because that's how much it seems to be getting next year, though I'd like to pretend it's 0. And then lightning round of smaller sets, 2 battle packs, 1 microfighter, and no mechs. I killed them because $18 is insane. I was gonna do 2 microfighters a year, so you could fight them like you used to be able to. But I went with 1 because 1, I prefer the more special ones with more desirable characters for cheap, and 2, because I prefer cheaper system scale sets like the Mando Speeder. Which leaves us with 21 system scale sets left for any given year. 18 if you subtract the battle packs and microfighters, and 15 assuming Smart Play doesn't die by the end of next year. But it will, so let's just say 18, or accurately 21. I will say I feel like only Star Wars can manage 5 sub-themes, even at this range. I feel like the max for any normal theme would be 3, or if they can really pull it off and lock in, 4. So, yeah, that's about it. Oh my, what the EverTube HD?
Make sure to leave a comment telling me which one it is. Subscribe with notifications on. Leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends, and subscribe to my gaming channel, Evan.
Big booty bricks.